What's up, folks? Today we'll be going over the basics of color theory, basically how we use colors in graffiti sketches, how they connect with each other, how they disconnect with each other, and basically an entire rundown of things such as contrasts, gradients, shading, and so on. Now, in the previous tutorial, there was a problem where I'd messed up with the smooth fades for the fill-in of the sketch whiz. So there actually is a solution for that on paper. You needn't necessarily go for an expensive medium such as canvas or so on. The solution that could be used is, for example, we could use pens like the marker pens, the alcohol based ones, the ones that have almost dried out completely, they're almost dead. So they look like this. Just get my masking paper in. Alright. So I've got two dead markers right here, almost dead. As in dried up completely. So as you can see, it fades out. So this could be used to create some pretty darn impressive effects. As we can see, we've got a relatively nice fade there, haven't we? Right? Now let's leave that aside. There are also other techniques that we could use for gradients, such as you use your marker obviously, and then I'll just give an example quickly. Now in these sketches, we take the example of this sketch right here. It says wound, W-O-U-N-D, wound. Okay, let's say wound. So what we can see here is obviously it's not a smooth gradient, it's not a smooth fade, but it's definitely quite similar to a fade. Now how one could achieve this effect is, could use obviously the darkest color over here, which is red, and then I slowly shade it, and then I space out the lines and slowly reduce the intensity of my lines, make them more thinner. Then in between that I add orange and make the lines of the orange thinner as I go above there across the red, and then I add yellow on the end at the top. So that's another way a smooth gradient like effect, it's not necessarily a smooth gradient, could be achieved in a graffiti sketch on a paper using alcohol based markers. Oh wait, and I'll be showing some more examples of what a gradient using the above mentioned or the technique I mentioned earlier would look like here. Now let's talk about the importance of using contrasts in our graffiti sketches and pieces. So basically contrasts are important because it's what make the fill-in and the outline different, and it makes the sketch pop out more and it's more readable. So there are three main types of contrasts. The first one being bright and dark. So let's take this A here for example. I kind of messed up this sketch right here of this ABC. It wasn't supposed to be like this, it was supposed to be like this. Didn't quite understand the concept. Now I'm clear with it. So basically I've used the fill-in as a light shade of green. Here in this case I've taken light green and dark green, a bright green and dark green. So the fill-in was light green and now the outline has been done in dark green. This is what makes the alphabet pop out a bit more. It's definitely pretty strong compared to the other types of contrasts, probably the most strongest one. So you could use bright green and dark green, or you could use red, dark red and orange. You could use black and white. These are different types of colors that you could use for having bright and dark contrast, the most strongest type of contrast. The second type of contrast, which is most prominently used in graffiti, is the contrast when you use a lighter shade of the same color and the darker shade of the same color. It's basically called a pastel full tone contrast. Here I've taken a light shade of violet and a deeper shade of violet. This makes although it's pretty weak it's pretty weak compared to the bright dark contrast one with the green shades. It makes the piece or the sketch right here look more natural and more pleasing to the eye. Now the third type of contrast I'd like to talk about is the contrast between warm and cold colors, also the warm cold contrasts. So basically, I hope you know what a color wheel is. If not, I'll just show an image right now. The contrast involves using the colors on the opposite side of the color wheel. So contrast such as a yellow film with a blue outline definitely pops out and stands out more. It's really like it makes the piece stand out, the sketch stand out more. That's also another type of contrast, pretty useful. This one right here, this ABC with the blue and yellow, that's the one I'm talking about right now. Oh, and one more thing, one could also use warm cold. Speaking about warm cold contrast, this piece right here, this sketch right here again, could be an example because I've used a warm shade inside, it's basically red, orange, and yellow, and a cooler shade outside, which is blue, a shades of blue and light blue. Hence, again, it makes the the piece stand out more. Now let's talk about how we generate depth and shape to a graffiti piece or sketch. So let's take the sketch here for example. Now let's think, how do we generate depth? And the colors I'd be using for this would be mainly purple, violet and its lighter shades. So how do we generate depth is we could shade it first. Let's consider that the darker side would be here, or yes, somewhere to this edge could be the darker side, and the lighter sides could be somewhere towards here. So what we'd be doing is I'd start shading it with the techniques I'd mentioned earlier, and yes, I'd be going slowly towards the lighter colors. It's more of a smooth fade to generate depth, like the letter would be, it would seem as though the letter is curved. Now that I've generated depth in the first sketch above through just fading, now let's do the opposite. So I'll be doing in the second sketch right here how we generate depth and more 3D using the same colors, not these colors, different colors, using the shades of the same color, but this time with hard edges instead of a smooth fade. Alright folks, now I'm back. Now this is what the piece would look like, the sketches would look like if I'd give the effect of hard lines instead of smooth fades to give more depth to it. And that being said, like if you did, subscribe, check out the other tutorials too. Thank you.